Yo, what is good guys? What's going on? It's Cole. I'm back for another video just for you. But, sorry about that. Alright, so what's going on? Hope everybody is good. Hope you're having a good day so far. So I'm back, as I say, for another video. Now today, what I'm going to be talking to you guys about is the pros and cons of being out versus being stealth in a workplace. So the past few months, I've been in a position where I've been able to work in several different workplaces, week to week, day to day. And so I thought that I would use that opportunity to basically be able to be out in some and be stealth in others, to be able to see the difference, in a very short space of time. So before we start, let me know in the comments if you're out or if you're stealth in work and your reasons why. Let's start a discussion, let's start discussing, let's start talking about it. So yeah, let me know guys. So to start off with, we'll start off with being stealth. You are less worried about what your colleagues are thinking, but it's good to just have that side of things just relieved and just relaxed. You also feel wholly accepted, so you do feel, I found that I was invited into certain spaces that I may not have necessarily been invited to if they'd known I was trans and potentially, had negative views about the trans community. So I've been invited, as I say, into, I guess, male-only spaces. I've experienced those same people that invited me into those spaces, say, potentially quite kind of sexist things or homophobic things, which I'll come to later on in the video. So it kind of made it clear to me that odds were they may not also be cool with trans people, right? So it was interesting to be invited into those spaces. It's also quite refreshing to not feel like you have to explain yourself all the time. Not that you should feel like that anyway, even if you are out, but it's a case of, you want to be able to help and you want to be able to educate people if they ask you questions, right? But you also can't speak for the whole trans community. You can speak from your own experience. And so as a result of that, you do feel like you kind of have to explain yourself, if they have a question or don't understand something or, assume something. And the final unfortunate pro is that you are safer in certain circumstances or certain situations, just as a result of being stealth, which is unfortunate, but it is a pro in itself, I guess. Okay, so when it comes to the cons of being stealth, I found that, if you are fully visible and you're fully out on your social media, it's quite difficult and it's quite awkward because there's times where they will, they obviously you're getting to know your friends, your colleagues, and they could become friends, and they ask to add you on social media. And you have to think of an excuse as to why they can't do that. I find that there's quite a few conversations that could lead to talking about being trans that I've had to avoid and kind of censor myself and kind of stop midway, or even avoid certain questions. Like for example, like this tattoo, they're like, what does your tattoo mean? And I've had to wing it. I've had to say any kind of explanation other than what it's really about. Now, another thing that I did find was when I was stealth, even if it was for maybe, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, and they were getting to know me and I was getting to know them, and we were being open, just having conversations, etc. I then began to feel guilty. When you consider telling your colleagues that you're trans after being stealth, it feels so much more difficult. It feels so much more of a big deal, and it really does kind of mount, the amount of pressure. It's a really strange thing to kind of experience because I didn't expect to feel that, but because I'd known them for so long, to then have not told them, and there'd be various conversations sort of around, that have given me opportunities to mention that I'm trans before. Yeah, not that I owe them anything, not that I owe them an explanation, but that is what I began to feel. So I just felt like it's good to document that. I also felt a lot more paranoid about them finding out as a result of, once again, being stealth. Once again, it's very easy, especially on places like Facebook, and obviously you come up as a mutual friend, and as a result, I made my profile private on Facebook because, all they've got to do is click through my pictures and you can see that I wasn't always Cole, right? So it does kind of mess with you a little bit on the kind of side of thinking, say they might find me, and plus the fact that I kind of felt that they would react worse, or they'd gossip about me. You know, I felt like their reaction would be more likely to be a bad one as a result of finding out rather than me telling them. And the final con when it comes to being stealth, which is partly what I mentioned earlier on about the homophobic and transphobic sexist comments, is that you do see the uglier side of people. There were a couple of times where, you know, I'd be in a certain workplace, and for example, in one of my workplaces there's a gay guy, and we got on really well and it's all good, and I've had people come up to me that have worked there, and you know, there's certain people that are saying, or you know, just really sort of homophobic, derogatory things, and then claiming that they're not homophobic, as I've stuck up for the gay guy. And it's just a case of, I'm kind of thinking, if you knew I was trans, would you say that to me in the same way, you know? And it's an unfortunate thing to experience, because you think, how much do people hold back around the presence of people that are different to your straight cis person, you know? And so that wasn't a very nice kind of discovery, but it's one of the same. Alright, so moving on to being out in the workplace. For me, I'll be honest, I'm biased, because that is my preference. It does make me feel better to be out. You know, you feel like you have, for one, nothing to hide. You feel like you can be yourself around people and just fully you know, have educational conversations in a relaxed, open environment. You know, you don't feel like you're being judged so much. You know, as long as you kind of read people and just read their reactions to what you're saying, the body language, the eyes, etc., it gives you a lot of indication as to, you know, as I say, what they truly think and feel towards trans people and towards you as an individual. And I just feel a lot more relaxed in that environment and a lot more accepted and just comfortable, you know. There's also no worries about slipping up and mentioning anything, you know, that could once again lead to your transition and lead to your experience of being trans. And as I say, you just feel so much more certain about how your colleagues and, you know, that could and, you know, may potentially become friends feel towards you. There feels like there's no kind of explanation needed, and it's just more comfortable. As I say, you know, I know I've said that in many different ways several times in the past minute, but I'd rather that you know the whole me. I'd rather that you know me as a person, and if you don't like me or you like me, then that's cool, but at least I know why, or at least I know, you know, that it's the real me that you like or that you don't like. So I've just always preferred that as an individual. But then, having said that, there are many cons to being out in the workplace. On bad or dysphoric days, I have found that I feel like people can sort of see through me, and that's really difficult to explain. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a different video on what dysphoria feels like, to just explain my experience of it and how it feels for me in the best way I can word it possible, which is actually really difficult to put into words. So another con that I found is that, you know, people can sometimes feel like they're stepping on eggshells around you. If somebody doesn't know how to accept or listen to the information, or, you know, the trans community is very alien to them, or they don't want to, you know, offend you, which is good in that sense, it can sort of feel sometimes a little bit awkward, and I don't like people to feel like that around me. I like people to feel comfortable and to feel relaxed and to be able to, you know, ask questions if they need to or if they want to, and not worry too much about their wording and the terminology, because if you're not part of a community, then how will you learn the correct terminology and the right way to word things if, you know, you don't ask questions, right? So I prefer for somebody outside of the community to be able to do that, and not be so worried, and not be just worried at all about offending me, because I'll say to them myself, listen, you ask me the question however it is that you feel is best to, and I'll correct you on any terminology or anything that could offend another trans person, just so that you know for the future, and I'll answer the question obviously provided it's not invasive, etc. But yeah, you know, I like for people to feel comfortable. I've also found that if you get a bad reaction, it can put you on the back foot, because, so for someone in my position, I've been very blessed to have had pretty much all positive, you know, positive reactions and accepting people, open-minded people, whether that be friends, family, or colleagues around me. And so as a result of that, if I get a bad reaction, it's kind of a surprise. It puts you on the back foot, so it's good to have a mindset kind of set and prepared for that, you know, for that potential, because it can happen, and just a way to deal with it as well. Also, the final con to being out, actually heads up on this, it is very, very good to make this very clear to anybody that you tell as soon as you tell them, and multiple times after if you need to, that this is not okay, because it's dangerous and it could put your life at risk if told to the wrong person. But people sometimes feel that it's okay to out you before you meet somebody, or they say, oh yeah, this is the trans person I told you about, or oh yeah, this is Cole, he's trans. You know, there's a lot of people that could do that, not think anything of it, because you're out and because you're so comfortable and because you're so open with it, they feel that it's also okay to do that. But what they don't realize is that actually, you know, I will sometimes withhold my trans status if I've read somebody and I believe that they could be a threat, or I believe that, you know, this isn't the right situation to come out and to make that known. I'd say that's the final con when it comes to being out in a workplace. And so, as I mentioned before, my preference for me and my experience is to be out in a workplace, just because, once again, I think I like people to know me and the whole me, you know. It's just a preference, I just prefer it. But remember, whichever route that you choose to go down, if you are trans and you are looking to come out in your workplace, or not for that matter, whichever one, that's absolutely fine, and that's at your discretion, and that's, you know, as I say, it's your choice, right? So depends on your circumstance and your, you know, how safe you feel in an environment. But also remember that if you don't feel safe in a work environment, it is just a job. You know, you can always find a new one. I know it's difficult in different places, but there will be another job out there. And, you know, if you don't feel safe, then obviously don't leave the previous place first, but find another workplace and move on to that one, because it's just not worth risking your safety for a job, you know, or even just your health and your happiness. As I say, even if the changeover period is scary or uncomfortable, it's always worth it. You know, you have to look after yourself first. So that's it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you've made it this far, thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. Any questions or queries, once again, message me on my Instagram or through my YouTube. Regardless, obviously I will reply. And stay tuned for the next video, because I'm going to be giving a little bit of advice on how to come out at work, along with what I mentioned in this video as well, is about how dysphoria feels for me. So once again, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay tuned, and I'll speak to you soon. Alright, peace.